Hey there, and welcome back to day 11 of the challenge. We are nearly done with this entire 12-day challenge, which is amazing. Thank you so much for painting along with me. I hope you have truly enjoyed the whole thing and finding some time in your days, because now we are getting so much closer to Christmas, and I know every day probably gets a little bit busier because I know it does over here for our family. And I just want to now let you know that tomorrow, December 12th at 12 p.m. Central Time, I'll actually be here on my channel live teaching my absolute favorite signature course that I teach twice a year for free. It is the Dog Portrait Masterclass. You should have received an email if you are signed up for the 12 Days of Christmas Watercolor Challenge. You should have received an email that would have included all of the details specific to the masterclass. So if you have any questions on that, be sure to reach out to me via an email. I'll have more information down below here to get in contact with me. You would have included or received a printable outline of the dog that we are painting and the reference piece that goes along with it, as well as the specific supplies guide if you are wanting to paint along with that. So you should have all those details already in your inbox. Maybe you've already looked it over and printed it out and are ready for tomorrow's class. That replay will be available also on my channel, so if you can't make it live, do not worry. And also a reminder that if you are participating in all the 12 days, because you could win a free entry into my Dog Portrait Masterclass course, and so, or my Master Watercolor Dog Breeds course, that you'll be able to win if you participate in all 12. Post all 12 of your paintings over on your Instagram and tag me so I can keep track. I am randomly selecting the winner, and I have all the details of when the deadline is December 14th at midnight to submit all your paintings. I hope all that made sense. Again, if that was hard to follow, please just go down below the video description. We'll have all the details. All right, let's get started with day 11. And this is actually a sweet little winter lantern that I bought at Hobby Lobby this year as like a little decor piece. And I thought it'd be so cute to paint. It's kind of like that snow globe feel, but just a different shape. So it's going to be a black lantern with this fun and festive winter scene. So I'm going to just start by using my size 4. Anything that you have, like a size 3, 4, medium pointed round brush is perfect, and that's what I'll use to paint in the lantern piece. You are welcome to paint the lantern a different color. The lantern is actually a black color, so I'll just go ahead and use my true black. I'll probably drop in some other fun colors like blue just to show some reflections and stuff. So here I have my, it's called an ivory black, pretty much just a black. I have a good amount of paint on my brush, and I'll start kind of where areas are the darkest just by simply outlining them. And I'll just bring my paint down here along this edge, and again I'm just kind of like outlining it because it is going to be more shiny and lighter on the inside here. So here we come around and over here. All right, so now what I'll do is just pick up more water and dab my paper towel just to lessen the black, and I'll start to smooth that in, and it'll probably make it a little less dark than it appeared already when we first started painting, and that's okay. I will drop in a little bit more, but again, like I mentioned, I'm trying to keep this piece right here, since it's a rounded 3D object, a little bit lighter. And I want to add some fun little other specks of colors, so let's just add a little bit more water. Let's just leave a patch like that, white. So getting rid of all the paint on my brush, let's find this fun, kind of like an ultramarine blue color, any type of blue. And let's just drop some of that in. Ooh, that is very bright, but going with it, let's just drop some of that in I just got rid of some of that paint on my brush and just going to kind of swirl that in where I was just painting. All right, so again, keeping now an even lesser white shine. I have quite a bit of paint and water swirling around in this area. And now let's use Payne's Gray. Will be another beautiful color to try and just kind of make the black appear a little bit more rich. So that's kind of that dark blue navy color. And that's what I'll use to go back through and drop around the edge here. Again, just let that kind of expand. You can even add some kind of in the center. But something like that is nice. Now, if you don't have, again, the Payne's Gray, just use either a dark blue that you have. You could mix up a dark blue with any type of blue and red and a little brown. So right now that's what I have, and that's kind of the color scheme I will use throughout this lantern. All right, now I'm going to do kind of the same process with that black. And I'll start down here where it's going to be the darkest. It's okay if it blends in or bleeds into the piece that we were just painting. And you can even use some of that black if you want to drop it in down here again. And working my way up. And also going to paint right underneath where that cap is. So this is the handle of the lantern, and there's actually going to be a really nice highlight on that that's going to help separate and show that object. So I'm getting rid of the paint on my brush right now and just going to use a little bit of water to try and smooth that in. And if we need to, we can add a bleed-proof white highlight right on that handle. And let's grab our Payne's Gray. Dropping some of that in along the top here. Trying to keep this part a little bit lighter. And drop some in underneath. Okay, now we have the top, and again, I want to leave a little bit of an area here for that really nice bright ultramarine blue. All right, so here we are. I'm just going to paint the outer edge, being careful to just kind of use the tip of my brush and working my way over. And again, going to leave parts of the lantern unpainted like that. I'll get rid of the paint on my brush and let's grab that little bit of blue that we were using, and that'll help show the highlight piece there. Get rid of all the paint again, and I'll just try and see if I can help kind of soften up some of those areas. And if you ever feel like you just made way too much, again, get rid of most of the paint on your brush and water, and you can just go through and mop some of that up. That worked out really nice. All right. I just love how the Payne's Gray is mixing with that black. It just helps to kind of just show a little bit of variety of dark color instead of just one flat color, monochromatic. It's now making it more dynamic. All right. Our little handle here, just grab some more of that black and just going to paint that shape with the tip of my brush. And again, this will be something that we need to go back through and revisit once everything is dry. And this piece is going to be a little bit lighter. So I just have a little bit of black again. Get rid of the paint on my brush. And let's just help show that little shine in the middle. Okay, so now if there's anywhere that you see that needs to be mopped up, we can still do that. This paper, I'm using, again, the Arches cold pressed paper, and it takes a while for it to really dry, especially if you had it pretty wet to begin with. So you can use your brush to help mop up anything if you feel like it got too heavy in certain areas. One of my favorite techniques. All right. That looks great and fun so far. Let's work our way down into the lantern base, grabbing more of that black. And I am just gonna leave this little piece right here, not painted yet, even though it'll be kind of that same color scheme up top. So starting, you might need to switch if you don't have anything that has a real good tip to it. Just make sure that you have something that you can really control. Just going to paint the lantern metal pieces that run down. And just being really careful. So I am kind of using a bigger brush. I just have to really control the pressure I'm using. And then we'll work our way to the front. And as we work our way to the front, it is going to be a little bit lighter there. Not by much, since it's still inside, not inside the lantern, but it's its back from the front. So it doesn't get quite as much light, but I'm just using my black color to kind of fill in that whole shape. Working our way back. Hopefully having these printable outlines has been really helpful for you within the challenge. I always love offering that. While sketching is a really important part to any art form, there are a lot of art forms, whether you actually sketch on the paper or sketch before just to get a concept on a piece of paper. It is an important skill to have, but for challenges like this, I really want to keep the focus more so on the painting. So I love offering the outline. So hopefully you enjoyed that. Okay, so working my way still up here, and again, just filling it in. I'm using a decent amount of water, but enough where I can control where the paint is going. I need to make this a little bit darker. And we will go back through and add a little more variety of paint color into this black patch that we are painting right now. Oops, I want to make sure I don't get too crazy here. I will add a little bit of blue to the front here. So I'll just make it nice and light, so not so much paint. Oops. Don't be so messy like me, or try not to be as messy as me. Now, I could go back through and try to get that off by using a clean brush and getting that nice and wet and almost scrubbing at those pieces like this. So you can see I just really kind of am trying to scrub away. And then I'll take my paper towel. This works like a great technique if you can catch your boo-boos fast enough. And then you just take your paper towel and try and soak it up. Might not be like 100% magic. There are a few other little tips and tricks on how to remove paint if you get it in an area that you don't want paint, but that's a great one that I usually try and use. Okay. Grabbing more of that black paint. It is going to be a little bit lighter up front here, so I don't have quite as much. And working our way down. So you can kind of see, had we used only black, because that's what I have, this one color on the front part of our, or the lower half of our lantern so far, how it's not quite as exciting and yeah, dynamic, I guess, is really the best word, as we have up top here when we have a mix of the black and the Payne's gray and those blues. All right, one more little patch here. I was trying to think of an idea for a snow globe, and I just all of a sudden was looking up while I was sitting there on my couch, and there this lantern was. I'm like, oh, that would be really fun to paint. So hopefully you enjoy this one. It's just kind of a different shape to a snow globe, which are always so fun to have out at Christmas time. All right, get in there. Perfect. Okay, so now while I have those kind of wet in some areas, I'll pick up some of our blue, that brighter blue, and I just kind of want to drop it in and let it mix in areas that are still kind of wet up front. Again, the blue, that bright blue, acts as kind of a reflection piece or a highlight within those highlights. So that's kind of where you want to think about where that's going to go. So you can't really see it too much. Maybe once it dries, you can just see a little hint of that. And now I want to use the Payne's Gray. And that will go back here, which really helps to layer on and make it look darker. So I'll just run that all the way down that back piece, since it's a very dark piece there, and right there. I'll grab that same color and I'll bring it just so it can kind of go right underneath and darken there as well as back here. And we'll bring it down. So I kind of want to leave these front pieces a little bit lighter and brighter, but it is kind of helpful to at least add little touches of the dark blue Payne's Gray colors. So I'm not sure if yours is still wet, but you could just run it right along an edge so that keeps the middle a little bit lighter. And it also helps to kind of solidify or strengthen that line. All right, here, one more. All right, so there I have that piece. And now, while this piece is not painted in yet, let's just grab the black, and like we did up here, I'll just kind of fill in that little area. Okay, don't necessarily need to leave that little white piece there. And if you are able to layer right over top of what we painted up, almost on that mushroom-like top, that's a really nice way to show kind of that shadow from that bulging top. Okay, we're getting there. So now the bottom half of our lantern, just grab more of that black, same concept. Just going to paint in the base, just working in sections. So I'll just paint this whole little piece in that medium black color, grayish color. And I'll grab my Payne's Gray and drop that in to darken areas. And I'll try and leave a little bit of that. There's like a little bit of the black showing there. However it kind of dries, really does a fun job of, you know, watercolor just mixing the two colors on paper. So I want to show again that same type of highlight down here because that piece is closest to us on the lower half. So I have my black, I'll start from the back, and then I will run that paint color along the bottom. where it'll be the darkest. And here we are. Okay, so that's what I did so far. Let's add a little bit more black over here, the back half. Just pick up water and dab my paper towel. We can just bring a few little really light white, or not white, lightish gray wash to the front. Now let's grab a little amount of that nice bright blue that we have and drop it in. And that makes a really nice little highlight down there. Let's grab our Payne's Gray again and run it along the bottom. That is what's going to make it a lot darker and richer, but being really careful to only hit the bottom and the sides back here. Can also run it along kind of where that other dividing line was on the sketch. But here we have that bottom piece. So it really does look like a 3D lantern, both because of the sketch and the perspective, but also now even more so with the highlights and the darker areas. So if you need to, you can always go back through and add some more dimension just by grabbing either black or that Payne's Gray and layering it on top for a wet on dry technique. And something like that, but anywhere that you feel that needs to be a little bit darker, you can go back through and do that. So now let's paint the inside of our little lantern snowy scene. So we just have this cute little house, and I might switch to a little bit of a smaller brush here. And let's see, the roof of the house is a red. So here I have my alizarin crimson, and I'll use a decent amount of that on my brush. So let's go through and paint that. And the other side. And then let's see, the red also, I'll leave the chimney, but the red also appears on this front part of the porch roof here. This little scene won't necessarily get a ton of detail for dimension, but it'll still look like a little scene in there. Okay, so there we have our roof. And the house is a green color. So here I have that really kind of brighter green, lighter green, and I don't mind using that. Let's add just a little bit of red to that. Kind of makes it more of an earthy green. I don't want too much red because then it gets kind of a yucky, weird green. So I'll show you how that looks. And if it mixes with the roof, that's okay. Let's work around our cute little windows. There's that piece. And I just didn't want this green to match the trees. So I just wanted to make it a little bit different here. Let's do up top. Whoops, I see that I forgot part of the roof coming down here. So the house extends, and this is a cute little person that's just sitting looking at the house. And so then next what I need to do is actually put red on that roof. So let's just grab our red. And then, oops, of course, I forgot that green on the chimney. So just kind of a festive little house in there. And then these are kind of like bottle brush trees, so I'm going to make them kind of a fun, I actually have to get a little more green out. That greenish blue color. It's like a deep green and blue. So here I have that sap green at its true color right out of the tube, and I'm just going to add a little Payne's Gray to that, just to help make it a little bit of that darker color. Got a little fuzzy there. So I have a decent amount of paint on my brush. I just want to start putting it down, and careful if your roof area is still wet. So as I'm going to work my way up, we're going to fan it out. So if you have a nice pointed tip, it's allowing me to create those little bristles, and then working my way up. And we'll do the same thing going down. Feel free to move your paper however you need. So I'm just creating little, very light pressure pieces until I get to the bottom, and you don't really need to see those edges of the bristles anymore. So while that's still wet, let's add, I'm just grabbing Payne's Gray. So let's just drop that in, and we can kind of do those bristles again on top in little areas. So I'll show that up close. See how cool that is? It kind of depends on how much water you used on the base layer, but I do want it to kind of stay, but also mix. That turned out better than I expected. So it really depends on how much green you had or how much water your base layer was. Let's try that again. We have another couple trees. So grabbing my Payne's Gray and that green. I don't have it super wet, but enough to be able to glide on the paper. So let's just fill in kind of down and around the house here. And then you can kind of hold your brush up and down like this. And you're gonna get a nice, good point. Let's try that again over here. And going to start to angle them down. Just have to rotate a little bit. And filling in the bottom here. And there we go. Grabbing the Payne's Gray. Starting more towards the center. And don't need a lot since it's pretty much covered up. Do that towards the bottom here. Let's see, another cute little tree up front. This tree doesn't need to be quite as dark. So here's our mixture of the green and the Payne's Gray. And they totally don't have to be perfect. This is just to give the essence of a tree. So the texture of those little fanned out needles really help to do that. I might just add a little Payne's Gray kind of towards the bottom base of that tree. And I'm going to come back. I will do our windows and the door. This over here is a little lamp or light post, so let's do that. Going to kind of have that same color scheme as our black, mixed with a little Payne's Gray just to help darken it as the lantern on the outside, but I do want it to be darker since it's sitting behind this highlighted piece. So just go ahead and fill in that. And just paint these little lines. And here's the post. There's actually a little wreath that hangs around there. I should have painted that in while I had my green of the tree, but I'll just leave that. And now we're working our way down the post. See how it is helpful to make it a little bit darker, just so it stands apart from the front of the lantern. Okay. I am going to switch to an even smaller brush. I have this 000. Something a little bit even bigger than that would be fine. I just want to be able to paint this cute little red hat. I'm going to work on this little kid that's sitting right in the front, so has a little red hat. And again, the details on this little character is so small. So then I have a little red coat. So I'm trying really hard to just use the white of the paper to help create the shape, to show that it is like a person sitting there. We have a green pants. So any green. The little pants there. And I gotta do the little black boots. Like that. And while I have that black color on this tiny liner brush, I will go through and now do the windows. So that's the color I'm going to use for the windows and the panes. Like that. That just helps to really tie in the colors on the outside too. It's kind of that modern black window look that everybody seems to like these days. And one little one over here, as well as the door. I didn't really include much on the outline for the detail of the door, so we can make it up. And I think I will just go through and I will leave a little square window on the door and paint the rest in like that. Okay, just a few tiny details left to do. How about that wreath? Kind of that sap green mixed with any little Payne's gray or anything. It's just so small, it doesn't really matter as long as it has the essence. And then we can actually add in that snowy scene so they're not just sitting on that stark white. So here I have a pretty clean brush. I just moved up in size to a size 3. And that is what, now we'll use this really very little amount of kind of that ultramarine blue, or you could use a really light amount of Payne's gray. And we just want to start to drop that in and paint it where shadows would appear. So that's kind of pretty much along the whole base, but just something to show a nice light area like that. Okay, so now the fun part of showing that it is a lantern inside of a glass lantern. And it's up to you if you want to add a little bit of snowflakes in there. If you want to do that, I am going to grab a little more of that blue and even some of the French ultramarine or the Windsor blue. Oop, now I'm getting a little too much green. Or Payne's gray, any type of blue. And we're just going to kind of do some little dots and speckles like this. We are going to go back through and use the bleed proof white that I love to use for snow. And we are just going to use mostly water, a little bit of paint, and just start to drop that in so it looks kind of like our base of the snow color. So something like that. But now we do need to show that there is glass. I love using the Payne's Gray for that. So here I have a little Payne's Gray and dabbing my paper towel, so mostly water. And you can do, oops, getting a little crazy there. And depending on how wet your background is, but we do want it to appear like almost like streaks. And it's okay that if it grabs colors that we already have painted underneath. Because that kind of captures the light. So let's grab a little more of the darker Payne's Gray here. I'm just going to paint kind of like a line. And I know it sounds crazy, but we need to kind of show it right over the pieces that we've already painted. So I'm just taking a little bit of water and smearing what was underneath it. Because that glass is what is kind of disrupting the pieces underneath it. So that's what the reflection is making it look like. So again, that's what I have so far. And now let's see, I would like to add a little bit of yellow for the light. So here's a pretty bright lemon yellow. And I actually have a little of that gold color, so the yellow ochre. And that is going to go right here in my little light. And I'd like to actually add that into my windows if it's possible. Let's see. Just to make it look like it's kind of glowing. You can add it right outside the light too. You can even add some up top into the blue. Kind of looks like a firefly in there. All right, so we are getting really close. This one's taking a little bit longer, but now let's add bleed-proof white if you have that. That is also what's going to help create the shine streaks here and a few other places. So again, mine's getting very dry. You can pull out just what you need. I'm using kind of my bigger brush with my pointed round tip for this, adding a little bit of water. So I have kind of a lot on my brush. So let's show some snow on our trees. Just going to do tiny little dots. I think that's kind of the look of a bottle brush tree, or those little dots of snow, but still kind of in the motion of how a bottle brush bristles are. Let's add some to our other tree back here. Doesn't have to be perfect at all. And some up top here. Okay, look how cute that looked and how much that helped to make that look like a snowy scene. If you want, you can add something right here to the roof. Again, I'm working in little dots. So here we have it right on the roof. And one of my favorite ways to kind of soften is to use your finger, and you can dab it if you need to. See, we have some kind of right here on the roof. And I don't know, I think that looks pretty good. If you need to soften anywhere else that needs some snow, have fun with that. Now what I actually want to do is, oops, forgot my little ruff over here, could use some too. So now what I want to do is add a white little streak right over top. And let's add another one up here. And maybe one right there. So I don't want it to go over the black piece. We want it to stay within the glass. And that might be pretty good. So I really just want to focus on that front piece right now. And I think that looks pretty good. You can even use it to help outline a little bit if you need to, if you got kind of overlapped in goofy places. I know this one was kind of a long one. All right, I think that turned out so cute. You can also add snow falling down if you'd like. I just love the different colors of the yellow mixing with the blues back there. Oh yeah, I think this will really help if you lost a piece of the shine of the lantern handle. Take that white and just run it right along there on the top. And you really can use it anywhere else that you feel like you wish you would have had a little more of a highlight. All right, everybody, thank you so much for joining me on day 11. Tomorrow again is the dog portrait masterclass. You'll, obviously I told you at the beginning, but I'll just remind you to check your email. And you, by signing up for this challenge or the dog portrait masterclass, you are going to get the free outline, and we are going to discuss how to paint a dog portrait from start to finish, and all of my favorite color mixing techniques, how to paint eyes, the nose, the mouth, all of it. So please join me if you can live. I love painting along with you guys live, and it's a great place to ask questions, and I'll be there to help answer anything. But otherwise, yep, can't wait to see your painting from today and for the grand finale tomorrow. Thanks so much for being here, and I will see you tomorrow.